Hello guys and welcome to my new video, and today we'll be talking about Holy Paladins because there's so many people who are wondering, these 8.3 changes look rough. How's my Holy Paladin gonna do in 8.3 in terms of Mythic Plus, in terms of rating? Should I start playing another character? Should I invest time into my Holy Paladin? And we'll answer this question. We'll talk about the gameplay that's associated with Holy Paladins in Mythic Plus and rating environment, because I know a lot of people are looking to play a new healer because of the boost that's available with Shadowlands, and they're kind of looking into Holy Paladin, and choosing a new healing class or any class in general is very, very daunting at the very beginning. So this video will provide you with a glimpse of gameplay for Mythic Plus and Raid, so you can decide, or maybe I can shed some light on the question, is Holy Paladin a good fit for you? So let's get started with Holy Paladin and the nerfs that are happening in 8.3. First of all, there's going to be an 8 Glimmer cap that's going to happen in 8.3 to do with Glimmer of Light, and Glimmer of Light healing is going to be reduced by 12%, which is going to be equivalent to something like a 3% overall healing nerf, but the burst healing is going to be severely diminished, and we'll talk about how that's going to affect the gameplay of Holy Paladins. If you're watching this video right now, you should not be too worried about 8.3 Holy Paladin viability. They're still looking extremely strong for raids and Mythic Plus, and we'll talk about it later on, because I want to go and cover the gameplay, because you need to know what Glimmer is. So first of all, if you're going to play Holy Paladin, Glimmer of Light is probably the most viable. Actually, it's not probably. It is the most viable and the best spec for Holy Paladin. Now you wonder, what is Glimmer of Light? Is it a talent? Where do I get it? It's an Azeroth trait. Blizzard has made Azeroth trait that is insanely overpowered, and at this given point can account for like 40% of your healing. There is no any Azeroth trait that any class has that can account for 40% of your damage, your healing, or whatever. But for Holy Paladins there is, and that is Glimmer. Glimmer of Light is basically a mini beacon that you're going to be placing on a target after you use Holy Shock on them. Holy Shock is your healing ability. It's instant cast and has a 9-second cooldown, and it can be used to DPS a mob or to heal. So now you have this kind of variation of, do I want to go DPS, do I want to go healing? It's one of many reasons why Holy Paladin is a very good choice for Mythic Plus and raiding, because at the end of the day, healer DPS matters. So Glimmer of Light, you want to have 3 of these traits. In order to get them, you can use engineering, because it's going to give you a definite helmet with Glimmer of Light. In 8.3, a lot of the Azeroth traits, or Blizzard has said that raiding Azeroth is going to drop the best pieces for you in terms of Glimmer of Light. So it's going to be easier to gear up your Holy Paladin in raiding environment, because Glimmer is going to be on a lot of the pieces. So once you get your Glimmer of Light, you're starting to build a new talent build. You're starting to build a new playstyle. All of a sudden, all of your misconceptions about Flash of Light, Holy Light, they're going to change, because the playstyle is very, very different from your default Holy Paladin build, where you just use Light of Dawn, you use Flash of Light, you use Holy Light, you try to use your Infusion of Light procs. That's out the window. Forget all about this, except Light of Dawn, because you still use Light of Dawn, but forget most of it. Glimmer of Light is completely different. Now, you need a specific talent build for this Glimmer of Light to actually work. You need Crusader Smite. This is a talent build that's very popular for Holy Paladins. Crusader Smite is super important, because look at it. Crusader Strike reduces the cooldown of Holy Shock and Light of Dawn by 1.5 seconds. That's really cool, because the whole playstyle of Glimmer is to get as many Holy Shocks on raid members as possible. And in order to reduce the cooldown of Holy Shock, you can use Crusader Smite talent, and all of a sudden your Crusader Strike, a DPS, a melee DPS ability, is going to reduce the cooldown of your Holy Shock. So you can see that a lot of the talent builds are aimed towards, let's reduce Holy Shock so we get more Glimmer of Light on the raid. That's the whole playstyle. After that, you will need to get Holy Avenger, which is a mini cooldown of 1.5 minutes that's going to give you 30% haste. And I mentioned this before. Haste is very important, because guess what? Holy Shock is affected by haste. Crusader Strike is affected by haste. For example, Holy Shock default cooldown is 9 seconds, but my Holy Shock cooldown is only 7 seconds because I have a lot of haste. So all of a sudden, your stat priority is also gonna lean towards more haste. So Holy Avenger is great because of that. And then you'll see Sanctified Wrath. Now this is a buff on top of your wings. I'll refer to wings throughout this video. It makes your wings stronger. All of a sudden, your wings are also going to reduce Holy Shock's cooldown by 50%. Again, everything's coming together. Holy Shock is getting buffed and buffed and buffed, and Glimmer of Light on top of that. because Glimmer of Light interacts with Holy Shock. And then the last talent is Divine Purpose, which a lot of people pick because it is very, very random, but it has a chance of basically giving you free Holy Shocks and free Light of Dawns. So if you're lucky, you can get a lot of Glimmers out there with this talent. And a lot of people are still using this in Mythic Plus and raiding environments. So what is the playstyle like for Holy Paladin with this talent build in, let's say, Mythic raiding or raiding environment? So the default playstyle when you're not using any of your cooldowns is very, very simple, and a lot of people might say it's quite boring. You go to melee, you apply your Holy Shock to members that need it, probably tanks, maybe someone who's going to be soaking abilities, or maybe you will use Holy Shock on a boss, because every time you're going to use Holy Shock on a friendly or an enemy target, it's going to heal or damage the people with Glimmer. So it's very, very efficient. After that, you'll probably be using Light of Dawn because it's your only one AoE ability, and then you'll be using Crusader Strike because you have Crusader Smite talent to reduce the cooldown of Light of Dawn and Holy Shock. At the very core of the build, it's very, very simple. You're basically in melee, Holy Shock, Light of Dawn, Crusader Strike. And you're kind of trying to apply as many Holy Shocks as possible on the raid while doing AoE healing through Light of Dawn. Maybe you want to do some DPS, it depends on what kind of playstyle you enjoy. Now the fun that happens with Holy Paladins and the reason that they're so strong is because their cooldowns. You have Holy Avenger and you have Sanctified Wrath or Wings. And you can make this one super cooldown by popping them together. So all of a sudden you get additional haste from Holy Avenger. Your cooldown of Holy Shock is reduced because of Sanctified Wrath, Avenging Wrath. And all of a sudden you are a god tier healer. The best burst healing in the game. The best burst DPS out of healers by a long shot. You are legit the best healer with these cooldowns. Because of the amount of haste that you're gaining, you can do the whole combo of Crusader Strike, Holy Shock, Crusader Strike, Holy Shock, because Crusader Strike cooldown reduction with the cooldowns is going to mean that you're going to get Holy Shock straight away. So this is a very fast playstyle, and a lot of people, I say that Holy Paladin is not really difficult, but a lot of people come back to me and they say, hey, I never got into this whole super cooldown rotation for my Holy Paladin because there's a lot of things to do. All of a sudden I need to hit the boss, then I need to make sure that I apply Glimmer of Light on a new target that doesn't have Glimmer of Light, and then Crusader Strike again, and everything happens really, really fast. It requires a lot of coordination. I feel it's not a hard playstyle, but I can see that maybe players who are not that quick, maybe they don't have keybinds set up, maybe they don't have use click here or whatever, they'll have a really hard time because in my opinion, this is the fastest playstyle when you have those cooldowns. And the whole gameplay of Holy Paladin is all about these cooldowns. Your cooldown window and what you do during those cooldowns is everything. If you mess up, if you're not in the range of melee, if you cannot click fast enough, your Holy Paladin is going to be terrible. You're going to do no healing whatsoever. You need to really optimize your healing. You need to apply glimmers on raid members that don't have glimmers. And if you do it correctly, you're going to have the best burst and one of the best healers in the game. And there's a reason why a lot of people use Vision of Perfection Major or at least an Essence, because it reduces the cooldown of your wings. So all of a sudden your Holy Avenger, which is 1.5 minute cooldown, can be kind of paired up with your wings in an easier way. And because the damage patterns in raids are all about damage every couple of minutes, Holy Paladin has really excelled in Eternal Palace because of its short cooldowns and how the damage patterns affect them in Eternal Palace. So how does this affect Mythic Plus? First of all, there's a lot less players to deal with. You're not going to be applying Glimmer on 15 targets or something. So you'll be using your Glimmer on maybe mobs and things like that. And I feel the stat priority, you can go with more crit to make your Infusion of Light procs feel better. A lot of people might not go full haste build and things like that. They might go with a bit of master and stuff like that. Or crit, like I mentioned, with additional crit, every time your Holy Shock crits, you get Infusion of Light, which is going to make your flashlight stronger, which can be good in Mythic Plus because maybe sometimes you can't be in melee range. Maybe certain bosses, like example, Freehold, the first boss that you do, you might not be able to stay in melee range because there's a lot of melee already. So you might have to stay away and all of a sudden you can't hit the boss. So you'll be using Flash of Lights or Holy Lights to deal with the damage. So I feel that in certain content in Mythic Plus, it's not all about Glimmer. You still have to go back to that old playstyle. And in terms of the healing and DPS, Holy Paladin is insanely strong. Again, the same kind of deal. Your cooldowns make you a god tier healer. But once your cooldowns are gone and all of a sudden someone pulls a massive trash bag pull, you can really struggle with healing depending on which essences you have. I feel Holy Paladin relies on its cooldowns the most. Your Holy Avenger, your Wings, they're extremely strong. Once you use them, you can feel like a god tier healer. You can do anything. Your Holy Shocks are almost instant. Majority of your heals are instant anyways. Holy Shock, Light of Dawn, like Crusader's Strike. All of these spells do not require hard casting. So you're this kind of like a instant healer that can pull out Holy Shocks to heal targets or Holy Shocks to DPS targets, which feels extremely fun. But once your cooldowns are gone, you can struggle a little bit with the healing, especially if someone pulls a larger pack. So there is a downside to this healer. If you can time your cooldowns really well, you're going to excel in raid scenarios and Mythic Plus scenarios. Sometimes in Mythic Plus, certain healers, if they know what trash packs are going to be pulled, they don't use the cooldowns together. They might stagger Holy Avenger, they might stagger Wings for one pack and then they use another cooldown for another pack. People do that sometimes because Mythic Plus is a lot different than raiding. In raiding, you make this one super cooldown. So overall, I hope this was a decent overview of the gameplay. I don't want to go too much into the playstyle, but for 8.3, there's a lot of things that are changing. Like I mentioned, Glimmer is getting an 8 cap. Glimmer healing is reduced by 12%. This is not going to be a big thing in Mythic Plus. In Mythic Plus, you barely ever have more than 8 Glimmers, even with large trash packs. You might have it with a, if you use all of your cooldowns, but overall, it's not a big reduction. And Glimmer healing reduction in Mythic Plus, again, Glimmer doesn't account for that much of your overall healing in Mythic Plus. So this nerf is still going to be felt, but I don't feel it's that bad. And at the end of the day, Holy Paladin is the king of healer DPS, or at least healer burst DPS. If you use specific Azeroth traits like the Indomitable Justice, which is the Judgment trait, which actually does a lot of your DPS as well. Glimmer does a lot of your DPS. Consecration can do a lot of DPS in large trash pack pulls. So I feel if you're playing Holy Paladin in Mythic Plus, try out that DPS. The DPS is actually insane. You can do some really fun numbers with Holy Paladin. In raiding, Glimmer nerfs are going to be a lot bigger because the 8 cap is pretty annoying. It's a weird type of nerf because if you're about to apply Glimmer on a 9 target, the first Glimmer that you applied is going to be overwritten. It's going to disappear. But before it disappears, it's going to heal for one last time. So it's not the end of the world. But you have to decide which players are going to get Glimmer. Are you going to use Glimmer on a boss? Because if you use Glimmer on the boss, that still counts towards your 8 cap. At the end of the day, I feel the gameplay is going to be a little bit clunkier, but you're probably just going to heal the people that actually need healing. You're going to put more emphasis into using your Holy Shock on someone who needs immediate healing instead of using preemptively, which sometimes happens in Eternal Palace based on damage patterns. So I feel it's going to be more of reactive healing in 8.3, but at the end of the day, the nerfs are nowhere near close enough to reduce the viability of Holy Paladins in 8.3. At the end of the day, you have Devotion Aura, which is an extremely strong damage reduction cooldown. You have passive DPS. You're still gonna have passive DPS because you still be using Crusader Strike. You still might be using Holy Shock on a boss, depending if you need that DPS. And you're the only healer in the game who has no mana issues. You can finish a fight with 80% of your mana. And I feel a lot of people don't really talk about this much because this is way nicer than people imagine, because you don't need to get external innovates. You don't need to get Blessing Wisdom. You don't have to worry about mana. You can just do your own thing, provide a top tier HPS, have damage reduction cooldowns, and not have to worry about, hey, I might run out of mana. I need some help. That will never happen because Holy Paladin mana efficiency is insanely strong because Crusader Strike, which is your bread and butter ability, has no mana cost associated to it. So overall, should you play Holy Paladin in 8.3 or should you play Holy Paladin right now? Absolutely. Holy Paladin Glimmer of Light is still a very strong build. It's one of the top healers in 8.3 in terms of raids, at least that's my predictions, unless there's going to be more changes, and it's going to be one of the top healers in Mythic Plus. Resto Druid will probably still be a king in Mythic Plus, but Holy Paladin is definitely in there. So if you want a healer that's good or great at all content, raids, Mythic Plus, then Holy Paladin is still a very solid choice for 8.3 and right now. Let me know how you feel about this, guys. Thank you for watching this video and I'll see you in my next guide.